Hello, it's seemownay. I'm so glad you are here today with me. We are going to pick my next long-form writing journal that I use with fountain pens. And the clicking noise in the background, that is my cat trying to get to his kibbles so he doesn't eat as much. So that's him. We are going to focus on these 3 notebooks. I am 3 or 4 pages away from finishing out this current one. This is 52 GSM Tomoe River Paper. This was from Paper Penguin Co. I had a chunky one that I took apart and put into 2 different journals. That's why the cover looks differently. But it is the old Tomoe River Paper 52 GSM. That's what I'm coming from, where I'm coming from. And this is where I might go. I have here a lined traveler's notebook from the Traveler's Company. If I am not mistaken, but I will link in the description below if that's not correct. This is MD paper. It is lined. I think for a long form writing journal, lines are okay. I'm actually really intrigued by the lining because I have some pens that have broader nibs and my handwriting isn't very tiny. So I would love to see how my handwriting looks with lines. That's why this is intriguing. And also I am kind of just want to change it up. I have used 2 A5 notebooks and I'm kind of digging this size. So this is a good big contender. I wanted to use this for something else. I'm not sure if this has still the right amount of pages. I put in one of those, I don't even know what they're called anymore. One of those in here that you can put in with a pin, and I just secured it with washi tape on the back. I like that little teeny tiny detail. And I have had this in my stash for years. Then this is a notebook that I purchased in a Facebook group. Someone was doing a stash of Tomoe River Paper notebooks. That's where I got this one from as well. And this was included too. This has 5mm grid, whereas this one has, I don't know. Let's check. 4mm grid. So that is also quite intriguing for me. Is my handwriting small enough to go single space, or would it look differently? And it's also a safe space because I know that this paper and the weight works really well with my fountain pens and my current collection. It's A5, it has 160 pages, so it's definitely a step up from this one. This one was just half of that. I started this in November, so if I'm going to go into one of those, then I will be in those for a while. The last one that I am looking to maybe use is this Stalogy half-year notebook. I don't even know if it says what kind of paper it is. It is the Stalogy paper that we all know from the Stalogy notebooks. And I have had various amounts of luck with the Stalogy paper and my fountain pens. Currently, I'm using a B6 one that I received several years ago for my YouTube journal. And in here, my fountain pens, most of them work really well. The only one that is bleeding is this color right here. That is a private reserve, and this is in a M nib. So maybe it would not bleed through or ghost. Would you call this bleed through? I don't know. if it was in a finer nib. I don't know. But what I really like about this, oh yeah, here I used it too, and here you can clearly see that that it's bleeding through. What I really like in here, and what I am not seeing as much or as obvious in the Tomoe River notebook, is how these inks are shading, especially the greens. Let me check if I find something. Well, this is not shading, but same thing with this this light brown ink, and then this one is a shimmer ink, but it's still, the shading on this paper is really nice, and I didn't even expect this to happen. Look here. So I'm intrigued on using this. What I found was that this is not the same grid as this one. I don't even know if you can see this right here, but it definitely says on the cover it is also 4mm grid, whereas this one is 5mm grid, which I actually prefer. So I thought I was going to swatch out what the inks that I have currently inked. I'm just going to use the last page in the notebook, in the journal that I'm currently in, just to keep it pristine, and also because I have messed up this page quite a bit with the leather of one of my notebooks. So if I can use this for that, that would be a great use of that page, and then I can keep this just as it is. I don't want to just leave it at fountain pens though. I want to use some watercolors and also some stamps and ink pads. Well, one stamp and several different ink pads, just to see how the papers work. If there is a difference that is seen, I brought 2 paintbrushes to use my watercolors. And yeah, I guess I am going to start. I think what I'm going to do is use the book that I had, that I'm currently using first, just to get a baseline, and then go into the 2 other ones. I will put notes in the description box below, or minutes, so that you can jump ahead if you are interested in looking for one specific one, or if you're just interested in seeing one specific notebook. So maybe what we can do is we'll use this really broad nib. We'll use one of the glitter ones, but I don't actually know if they work. Maybe I have to cut things out. And then this one is really nice shading wise. And I think that's basically it. Let's just try these 4, or maybe this one too. Yeah. Oh, and this one, because this one is the electric DC blue that was bleeding through. So I'm going to test one of these 5 different fountain pens. So we have a variety. And I'll just get this to make sure one of them actually writes. Yeah, this one does. Let's see how this works, if it works. Yeah, there's lots of gunk, of glitter gunk in this one. It hasn't worked the last time, so I'm not going to use this one. Okay. I really enjoy, or I like, with this thin Tomoe River paper, I enjoy having a writing board underneath, a Stalogy from Hobonichi, but I don't like writing on this slick surface, so I'm putting another piece of paper right underneath. This is just mixed media paper where I have a paper pad, and then it feels more softer, maybe that. So this is a Pilot Vanishing Point. The ink is Private Reserve. Electric DC Blue. And the nib is M. I'm just gonna write first and then we'll check the back. This is a Pilot Custom 74. It's also an M-nib. This is Robert Oster. Then I have my really nice shader. This is the Franklin Model 45, and this is an M-nib, and the color is Robert Oster. Tea time. Then I have here nothing, not much left in here. This is Kaweco with a double broad nib, and the ink is Sailor Yori Yozakura. And then last is another Kaweco Sport. I really use this blotting paper on when I'm writing on the top of the page, just to make sure that my hand oils don't transfer over on the page, because it makes for an interesting writing experience. Sport M. What I have experienced with the shimmer inks is that they sometimes clog the nib and feed. I hope this writes diamine. You can see that there is like really a thin line, so I guess I need to clean this first or rinse it. There's shimmer particles that you can see right here that are dried up, so it might not be working. Maybe I can dip it and see if that makes it work better. Yep, I think that was all I needed. It's from the Ink Vent 2021 Zub 0, and there is some kind of resist with the bleeding. So I guess what I'm using next is the stamps, because then I can use the watercolor and don't interfere with each other. This is one thing that bleeds through a lot, so I guess this is something that we can check if there is a difference on any of the papers. And then I picked this stamp. It is from Cute Things from Japan and Maruko, and I picked this because you have line art or finer lines, as well as full-on ink. The black parts will be the color, so we can see how the paper reacts to line stamps. So you could use a line art stamp, just not with full-on ink prints, and then decide for yourself. So this is the Shachihata ink pad. I don't know the color name. It's a dark blue. And I forgot something. I forgot my stamp chamois. This is just a chamois. I think that's what it's called. I will link it. I got it from Amazon in a double pack, and then I just cut it apart. And if you wet it, it's really good as a stamp cleaner. So then this is an ink that I have had for at least 10 years now. It's still not dried out, and it's one that stamps really fine details. I think it's waterproof. Pigment ink. Perfect for using watercolors to color stamped images. This works really well usually, but the question is, will it bleed through? And it's really nice black, crisp lines. Lots of people use this, so that's why I brought this out. Then this one is, I think this is an oil-based ink. Then this one is a chalk ink. the VersaMagic. This is Night Sky. It's a blue ink. I thought since I picked blue here, I could pick blue over here as well, so we can see how the different blues work. Alrighty, so that's supposedly Night Sky. And then the last one is this Archival Ink. This is acid-free, permanent, waterproof. It doesn't say if it has oil. It's definitely a dye ink. And this bleeds basically through everything. So let's see if it bleeds through here as well. I will use this one for, so this is Archival. This is VersaMagic. This is Versafine. And then this is Shachihata. All right, then let's use watercolors. I'll just write something with, can you see this? I'm not gonna dip it in, I'm just gonna re-wet some of the ink or pigment that is on this side of the page. So now we're going to go into the reds, and then hello. And then let's use the thicker one and make a big, wet, watercolory mess down here. Now this is going to be gray for sure. I really love using watercolors on Tomoe River paper just because it doesn't seep into the paper and it pools. Basically, if you know about granulating watercolors, it gives you that granulating effect without even having to have those watercolors, basically. All right, there's multiple layers of watercolor, and there's water still on the page here, as you can see right here. It's not the nicest color, but ta-da! I will let this dry, and then we'll come to this back to this later and compare. All right, so let's use the MD notebook next. Am I going to use it this side, this side? I guess I can do it this way. Doesn't really matter. Does it matter? Do we know? Do you care? Where do you do your ink tests in the back of your notebooks? Is it on this page or on the right side, right hand side? Right, pilot. Vanishing. I have another MD notebook, and my fountain pens don't glide over the paper. That's why I enjoy Tomoe River Paper so much, because my fountain pens like slide over the paper just like skates, and they don't do that with the other MD notebook that I have. But this one is clearly not an MD notebook, but the Traveler's Factory notebook, and it seems like it has maybe a different coating. I don't know. Private Reserve. Electric DC Blue. Let's check for shadings and nibs. It's weird. I really have to say that one more time and over again. because this paper does not feel like the MD paper. I can show you the notebook in just a second that I have. When it is said that this paper is supposed to be the same as the other one has more cream color paper as well. Frank Lynn. I am positively surprised by this. I was afraid and very hesitant, model 45, to use this. But now I think maybe the gliding is, has helped me make that decision, because it feels so nice. Right, Kawago. Double broad. Sailor. Shikiori. Oh, if you know is it Yozakura? Is it Yozakura? Where is the, is it all the same? Where is the Betonung? What's Betonung in English? We don't know. Kawago. Diamine. I was going to write Robert Oster. Diamine Inkvent 21 Sub-Zero. I really like how this looks. You can see how the colors shade, especially this one. This one is a really nice shader. I like how this looks. I like what I like about this Sub-Zero ink is that you can see the shimmer, but it's not overpowering. And if you don't see the shimmer, it looks like shading. That's really super cool. So let's start. Sorry for the shaking. Okay, let's start with the stamping. Then Versafine. I'm always smitten by the dark black and the crispness of the lines of the Versafine. There's nothing that compares to this, that comes even close, in my opinion. If you have a different one, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear, just because. Okay, let's see this one. This one is good too, but from my experience, this one doesn't work on most papers. Okay, so Versafine, VersaMagic. Oh, there's another cat. Same cat. And Archival. I have 3. That's why I'm saying same cat, because the same cat is back for more shenanigans. Maybe I'm gonna dip now, because none of the pigments here are even nice enough to use. So for sure, it doesn't like seep into the paper and then it's gone. I think that's what's going to happen with the Stalogy, if I remember correctly. That's what happened last time when I did a watercolor test. Let's just use some more of the reds. Since we're already at the reds, let's just go there. Yep. Maybe some orange right here. And then maybe let's put some ink in there in the middle. See how that works. So again, I have a lot of water on this paper, and let's see how that works. Drying as well. I hope it's gonna dry, otherwise I'll just have to come back when all of those are dry, and then we can see from then on. I'm just gonna put this board in here again, and I'm gonna start one more time with my pens first. All right, this is the Pilot Vanishing Point. M Private Reserve Electric. Maybe next time I will use fountain pen inks with different colors. DC Blue, that are really short and very precise, and Pilot Custom 74. This is currently my favorite pen. Robert Oster Soft Kitty Warm Kitty. And then which one was next? I mean, does it really make a difference? Yeah, it does for me, because I am just clean. I did not have, do I have a sheening ink actually in my currently inked Model 45? I don't know, but that would be something that would be interesting, and that's, I have heard, and I think that's true from my own experience. Sheening inks are really best to be seen on Tomoe River paper, also those chromo shading inks, but I don't think I currently have any of those inked. Well, first of all, I don't have any in my possession besides sheening inks, but I don't have any of those currently inked in my fountain pen, so I wouldn't be able to show that to you. But if you're interested on how these chromo shading inks perform, maybe not on the papers that I am currently trying out. Hello? Excuse me, can you be... then Yoseka Stationery definitely has amazing videos on their channel. I can't talk and write at the same time. And you can see how differently the inks perform. So that would be something that would be super interesting to see. Yozakura, on what these inks would do. Wow, see, I can't talk. So this is supposed to be Yozakura. What these chromo shading inks would look like on these papers, because if I don't know if you saw the video, but some of these inks were just green on all. Like on the Tomoe River paper, you could see so many different shades and colors, but on the bank paper, it was the same color. It was just green, or different shades of green. Kaweco Sport M, and this is Diamond. Inkvent. If you have a cat, let me know if they are as... I have heard that cats don't like glued stuff. My cats love glue. He started eating this packaging right now, and now we are having a real-time cat visitor right here. Excuse me? Okay, stamp. Where is it? Right here. Shachihata is the first one. Let's ink this bad boy, bad girl, bad stamp up. Right down here. I am actually not necessarily needing the writing board here, but I thought if any of the stamps and inks bleed through, then that would save the next page. So that's why I'm making sure that I have them in there all the time. So what's next? This one. Oh, clean. I'm getting distracted. Oh, wow. Sorry. I'm distracting myself, and then I don't know what is next. And then I put away the stamp that I need one more time. All right. Last one. Maybe they did something to their paper quality, because this feels really smooth. And yeah, this is the third Stalogy notebook that I own. I had an A6, B6, and now this is A5. And the A6 was horrible with inks. However, I think at the time when Shachihata, can't barely see, then Versafine, I was using Noodler's Lexington Gray and Noodler's Black, and it almost made me stop using fountain pens because I thought something was wrong with my fountain pens, when in reality, these inks are just so super wet and put down so much ink on paper. That's the reason why I thought I would need extra fine nibs or fine nibs, when in fact most of these nibs here are M nibs. And I didn't purchase this. Someone gave this to me as a YouTube watcher. Amy, if you see this, thank you so much. I really enjoy using this nib. I would have never in my life thought that I would enjoy a double broad nib, but I actually do. I love how the shading on these inks comes out. So for sure, if you think that you can only use extra fine nibs and F nibs because you have in the past used Noodler's inks and that was the only fountain pen that worked, try other inks and see, and then bigger, broader nibs to see if maybe you actually enjoy broader nibs with other inks. Just a tip. This is not a fountain pen video, but it is kind of, anyway. Hello? Hello? Yeah, it's not as bad. So yeah, all of the inks that I used then would bleed through the paper no matter what pen, what nib I used. It would just, you could see everything on the other side, and that just doesn't work for me. And so I just didn't use fountain pens. And then I used fountain pens in my what was it, in my Hobonichi, and oh my gosh, on the Tomoe River Paper. It's such a different experience. It takes a long time to dry. That's why I personally always make sure to use blotting paper in between, so I can just close it. And I'm not using this to make any pretty pages, or I don't care if it's smudging a bit, but I don't personally have any bad experience with smudging on the Tomoe River Paper. And I also, the only thing that I noticed is that the shimmer sits on top of the paper and on top of the ink, so that will come off, but we can test that out here now as well. So what I notice here is that it looks like it soaks into the paper more than the other two papers. This kind of looks like if you would put water on tissue paper, it just soaks it all in, and it spreads, the water spreads out. That's why here you can see the paintbrush stroke. That's something that you don't see on this paper as well as on this paper. And yes, I can totally understand if you don't like the watercolor on this paper. it is not the watercolor's fault that this looks so disgusting. That's my fault. I should have just stuck to one color family and then it wouldn't look like mud on paper. So they're still wet. I'm going to turn off the camera now and come back when they are dry, and then we can look at the back side. We can test if the shimmer comes off, and yeah, final conclusion after this. I just wanted to come on here in between before it's completely dry, but I made another watercolor splotch just so that you can compare the vibrancy of the colors, which I thought was an interesting thing as well. But you can see that the water is pooling in different areas and it dries in these like puddles. That is what I personally really love about watercolor on Tomoe River, but I just wanted you to see how that actually looks when it's still wet. Lots of time has passed, but this is still not dry. I just wanted to show you what this looks like. The shading on the Tomoe River paper is good, really nice. Let's see how the shimmer is. There's shimmer coming off for sure. Right here, the stamps. All right, so the Versafine is almost, there's some spots that are bleeding through, especially in the filled section. The Shachihata is ghosting. The VersaMagic, the chalk ink, that's the only one, the only chalk ink that I put down, is not even visible, like minimal ghosting maybe. The Archival Ink completely bled through, and the date stamp is also almost a bleeder. There is tiny little specks where it bled through the paper. Not completely, not all the things, but some of them. So if you wanted to have ink that you can trust for stamping, you would have to go with any chalk ink. It doesn't have to be VersaMagic, but that's probably the most not known ink. I personally have maybe one or two of the VersaMagic ink pads. I purchased the chalk ink edgers from Prima. I would not recommend them, but I have them, so that's what I would use if I was wanting to stamp in my Tomoe River paper journal. Or always a thing, stamp on other paper, fuzzy cut, and then stick it in with glue. That personally doesn't affect me right now. I'm just looking for something that I can use with fountain pens. They were really well. The Private Reserve seems to be an ink that here it ghosts. It doesn't bleed through, but it does ghost. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. The watercolor looks really vibrant, which if you compare it with the MD paper and the Stalogy, then this, if you wanted to have very vibrant colors, this would probably not the journal that you should go with. The inks have nice shading. As I said, I really liked the way it glided over the paper. Let's rub some shimmer. There is some, it's probably similar. I added the date stamp that I forgot while I was filming, so let's check. This is impressive. So basically, you could notice some specks, but you could actually use all of those inks, stamping inks, in this insert, and you would have ghosting, but no bleed through. So that's definitely something that is remarkable and should be noted here. A big plus for this insert. And the paper, after it is dry with watercolor, sounds like this. Then the Stalogy, okay, so when I rub my finger over this, this looks like the paper is still intact in its, you know, in its integrity, if that makes sense. But here, it feels like I damaged the paper, and as if it was more fragile where the watercolor is. Shading is still really nice here. The tea time ink is amazing on all of the papers, to be honest. And then let's just try and see. Oh, I have used this before. There is shimmer coming off, but not as much. Maybe I'm biased. Not sure. But the most depressing thing on this is that not just all of the ink pads, besides the chalk ink, bleed through, but also the electric DC blue. So you would probably, if you were going to use this for fountain pens, you would have to test all of your pens or inks that you were planning to use in here. Maybe start from the back and then just try and see if it works or not, just to make sure that you're not disappointed, or especially when you have written on this side of the page and then you write with a different ink on this side and it bleeds through, it makes this page almost unreadable. So it works with many of the inks that I tried here, but not with all of them. So that is something that you should be mindful of. The paper sound is still really nice. It feels like this is definitely a heavier weight paper. This feels thinner. This is more hefty. And then let's see, this one, we know 52 GSM. The interesting thing is that this feels not as light as this one, or maybe I'm biased, I don't know. This is what Tomoe River Paper sounds like when it's wet and dry. Yeah. So, I personally, my opinion, let's see what the May stamp looks like. It bleeds through. So don't use these date stamps in here, in case you don't want to have this show through on the other side. I think I am biased, but if I were going to use watercolor, then I probably would use Tomoe River Paper. I don't, even though it's very vibrant on here, I don't think that this is, it also feels very chalky, which is not what this watercolor is. It feels not as chalky here. So if I was going to use watercolors on a daily basis in this journal, in a journal, this is not my first choice. It would be this or this, depending on if you have time for it to wait for it to dry. As you can see, it is still drying. This definitely dried faster, even if I had applied the watercolor at the same time. I have not tried sheening inks on these two papers, but with the inks that I have here, I don't see a reason why it has to be Tomoe River Paper to bring out the properties of the inks. The shimmer is visible, the shading is visible enough on all three of those papers. And let me just show you a side-by-side comparison one more time. I think you already know that I'm going to go with this just because it's a different size and it's something else. And it doesn't have as many pages. What journal are you using for long form writing? What is your favorite paper? Let me know in the comments below. I hope to see you soon. Until then, goodbye.